What I want to do is just kind of take a step back here to 2002. Very briefly, I got started in the industry at Smith Barney. I was an intern there in 2002. And I always remember this conversation with a big league, a big guy there, big cheese in the office. And what he did is he built alliances with other professionals. So at the time, I lacked a little bit of experience and confidence to really actually want to follow in his footsteps in doing that. However, I thought, interesting. I see what he's done, and it's obviously worked very well. For those of you that don't know, Smith Barney actually had the oldest CPA Alliance training program. So I was introduced to the idea very early. And fast forward a few years, it's 2008, 2009, a market crash. I was working at a smaller boutique firm in San Diego. We all got together one morning. The managing partner says, sorry guys, we're shutting the doors this afternoon. Best of luck to you. So then I decide to go out, like a lot of us probably have, or some of us have considered, and become independent. I'm going to be an independent advisor. So what did that mean? It meant I did dinner seminars, radio programs, bought cold leads, and I still just lacked a little bit of that confidence to go out and start forming those strategic relationships. And so fast forward now a year, and I'm building my business by buying leads, doing dinner seminars, and I come across a 54-year-old engineer by the name of Mike Stewart. I'm sure those of us on the line that have had an opportunity to work with engineers can appreciate he had a lot of questions. Now, because he worked 60 hours a week, he didn't want to actually meet during the weekdays. So what did that mean? It meant we were meeting on weekends. I was still at that phase of business where I kind of let the clients dictate what I did, where I would go, when I did it. So rather than hanging out with my kids, taking them to the beach, maybe surfing on a Saturday afternoon, July in San Diego, I'm hanging out in Panera Bread, button-up shirt and slacks. Third time I'm doing this. And after 45 minutes with Mike, he finally sits back and he says, you know what? You did a good job here. I'm impressed with the plan you've put together. I really like this. You know what? I think I'd like to move forward. And inside, I've got the little Rocky moment. Dun, dun, dun. So I'm excited. I'm feeling good. And I say, no problem. The next step is just to fill out a little bit of initial paperwork. He says, no problem, slides it over. We're starting to walk through it. And then all of a sudden he stops. He goes, you know what? I just thought of something. I'd actually just briefly like to run this by my CPA. I'm sure he'll be fine with it, but I'd just like to get his blessing on it. I assume that's not a problem. So for the wealth managers, the insurance agents on the line, what is that feeling that you start getting when a prospect tells you, I just want to run it by my CPA? Has anybody had that happen? Type in the chat box there if you have. Have you had that happen when you're sitting down and they say, I just want to run this by my CPA? I'll tell you, for me, it's never been a good feeling, or at least it wasn't up to that point. And for the CPAs on the line, it's not because we're trying to like pull one over on the prospects. It's not because we have ill intent. It's just because we are losing control. And I've always been taught by my mentors, one of the major rules in business is to control the controllables, okay? So what can I say except, of course you should run it by your CPA. Great idea. But I at least had enough experience to suggest that he introduces me. So I say, you know, if you don't mind, I'll shoot you an email this afternoon. You can forward that to your CPA, CC me on it. I'll reach out to the CPA. CPA and I will talk a little bit. We'll see what questions he has. Then the three of us can set up a conference call, make sure he's comfortable with everything we've gone over, and you get the green light you're looking for. So Mike thinks about it for a second and says, sure, that's a good idea. So Saturday afternoon when I get back, I send Mike the email. He forwards it to the CPA. He CCs me, just like I asked. No response Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. I get an email back from Mike. Unfortunately, I heard from my CPA and he's too busy to talk to you. But he did promise me that as long as I forward you, or as long as I forward him everything that you and I have gone over, he'll take the time, he'll look at it, and then he'll circle back with us. This doesn't feel very good to me. Reluctantly, I send Mike everything I've put together for him. Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, I hear nothing. Friday, after 3 Saturday afternoons I've spent with Mike, plus the hours of planning, I get a 2-line email back from Mike that says, I heard from my CPA and he's not comfortable with the plan that you put together. But I appreciate your time. Best, Mike. So I pick up the phone and I call Mike. He doesn't answer, surprise. I leave a voicemail. I'd love to know what your CPA was uncomfortable with. Maybe there's some things that we can talk through. If we need to make any adjustments, I'm happy to do that. Let me know a convenient time to connect. I never hear back from Mike on the phone. I never hear back from Mike via email. 3 Saturday afternoons plus the planning, endless amount of planning time I put into it. And I get essentially ghosted by Mike. So I never did any business with Mike as a result of this experience. But I'll tell you what I did do as a result of it is I had enough of that feeling of playing Battleship with my business. Does anybody remember this game? Anybody used to play this? Type in the chat box. You know, I see Nadia and Michael shaking their head. They remember this. So it depends on how far back we go, but the version I used to play as a kid looked something like this. You had a little divider between you and the opponent, and you would guess based on a grid where the opponent's ships were, and then you would type that in and you would wait, and there'd be this sound. It'd be the sound of what was meant to be a rocket or a missile going over. And then it was either silence, meaning your missile fell into the water, or meaning you hit the opponent's ship. Now, that's a fun game, and even their tagline here says, combine strategy and luck in this exciting action game. I love action. I love games. I love exciting things. But not when it comes to my business, not when it comes to my livelihood, not when it comes to providing for my family. I was sick of the luck. So what I decided there was, I'm not going to buy any cold leads anymore. I'm not going to do any dinner seminars. I'm not going to do any more radio. I'm going to intentionally form strategic alliances with CPAs, attorneys, and other financial professionals. I'm going to go back to the Smith-Barney days and commit to doing that. 18 months later, I had made $15,000. 18 months of effort I put into building those types of relationships. $15,000 I had to show for it. Well, plus $52,000 of credit card debt after 18 months. Obviously, I had no idea what I was doing. I was cold calling, I was knocking, I was walking in their offices, buying lunches, I was buying coffees, and it really wasn't going anywhere. Finally, I got introduced to a CPA from a mutual friend. And the way I was introduced is that this is a very successful CPA. So I had sat down with him and I started explaining my journey over the last 18 months. And he said, what you're doing wrong is that you don't understand what it is like for us. You're coming in here and you're trying to tell us about this proprietary product or the assets you manage or your investment portfolio or how you service clients. That's what every single financial advisor tells us that sits down with us. So I finally say, okay, then let me understand more about you. Tell me about your business. And I happened to just be lucky at the lunch meeting I was with that this was a very unique CPA. He said, sure, I have 4 clients. 4 clients? Are you not very good at marketing? What's going on there? He said, no, I have 4 clients, but what people don't understand is the average net worth of each of my clients is $150 million. Okay. And each of those clients pays me an annual retainer of $125,000 a year. Okay, and I'm doing some quick math and I realized that's $500,000 on retainer. So how did you do that? And he said, I used to be running a fairly typical CPA practice. And what I eventually realized is that my best clients prefer 2 key things: proactive and holistic planning. Not being very familiar with those terms at the time, he starts to break it down for me. Proactive addressing potential problems before they happen. Make sense? Sounds like a great thing. Rather than dealing with the aftermath, we address it before it happens. Holistic, meaning we take all of the individual parts into account before we are diagnosing the entire situation. Okay, so you're telling me when I just sit down with a prospect and I talk to them about a product or a management philosophy, and I'm not taking into account their legal needs or their tax needs or their business needs, I'm not being holistic. He said, no, you're being a salesman. Huh, okay. And so this idea planted a seed. And as I started looking at the way that different individuals worked together through the industries and having conversations with like-minded individuals and creating new business partnerships, I saw more and more what a lot of you have come to realize is that most financial professionals, unfortunately, work within their silos, right? The wealth manager sees the wealth management opportunity. The insurance agent sees the insurance sale. The CPA sees the tax planning, the tax returns. The estate planning attorney sees the estate planning opportunity. And they work within their individual silos with very little communication between each other. And if there is, it's not proactive. It's like the client called, had a complaint, and then maybe the CPA and the attorney and the advisor have to talk. Now, imagine the same thing if it was done by doctors, okay? If doctors had to do that, where they weren't comparing notes on prescriptions, on the issue that was going on with your health, on your atrial fibrillation and what might be causing that in your heart, it'd be malpractice. So what I started to understand is this model that was described to me as having 4 clients with $150 million in net worth was essentially the core of what is a family office. Now, I'm going to assume many people are familiar with a family office at this point. It's become more popular in the last few years. And essentially the idea is a very wealthy family or individual can afford to have the core players on their team all working on retainer for them, essentially in-house, okay? And although this is a great model for the families that can afford it, it doesn't represent 99.9% of the potential families that you and I have served, okay? But the concept is very intriguing. The concept, if you really boil it down to its core, looks something like this. All of those moving pieces, all of those different needs, I would argue can be boiled down into 5 categories. I'm going to start on the left-hand side here, which is the tax planning, right? You have things that you would expect when you talk to a CPA. That could be doing tax returns, that could be doing bookkeeping, but then also proactive tax planning. How do we use things like the Augusta loophole? How do we use things like multiple entity planning, hiring kids, like cost segregation, like CRUTs, like NIM-CRUTs, like pooled income funds? How do we use different strategies to proactively mitigate our tax liability? Okay, so that's tax planning. Insurance at the top there. Insurance needs, basic insurance needs, whether it's done for family protection, whether it's done to fund a buy-sell agreement. But life insurance plays an important role in the majority of our clients' lives. Wealth management, whether that's an investment account, a retirement account, a college savings account, 529 plan. These are all important aspects that our clients need. Then we have legal services, the trust, the will, the buy-sell agreement, the agreements with our clients or with our business partners, all of the legal needs that our clients have. And then finally, the business advisory services. And business advisory service is one that I think oftentimes gets overlooked, actually. But for the majority of us that have clients, they're going to fall into the small and medium-sized businesses. In fact, I'd argue probably most, over 90% of our clients are going to fall into that small business owner category. So business advisory services includes things like, where are they going? What does this look like in 5 years, 7 years, 10 years? What is their company culture? How is their leadership development what are their key performance indicators? How are they measuring them? How are they improving? Business advisory services. So when we can sit down with a client and we can say, between my own expertise, which for most of us on this line is going to be probably insurance and wealth management, to the accountants on the line, it's probably tax planning. When we can sit down and say, within my own area of expertise, plus my team of specialists, I can actually proactively and holistically wrap my arms around your financial needs and address all of your concerns. We truly differentiate ourselves and bring a lot of value to clients. So this is, in essence, when we boil down our model of what we've been teaching over the last 5 or 6 years, helping advisors grow, is by integrating into their practice a more proactive and holistic value proposition by forming relationships with CPAs and other centers of influence.